de-evolution and re-evolution. Those are two opposite sides of the same coin. Now, the world has been evolving. Over the last couple hundred years, we've seen global trade flourish. We've seen technologies flourish. We've seen massive prosperity. Global poverty is being eradicated, and things have been getting better. However, all of this evolution is now leading to a de-evolutionary moment where the world is starting to break apart, where global trade is starting to break down, and all of the progress that we've made is starting to unwind, really the catalyst being the last couple of months in this new world war that has started. However, there's another catalyst where the world will start to re-evolve again. Now, I break all of this down in a talk that I gave recently at my Market Disruptors live event in Dallas, Texas, just a little while ago. I had about 15 of the best speakers in the world, and each of their disciplines come and tell you what they think is going to happen and what you should be doing about it. Speakers like Danielle DiMartino Booth, a Fed insider, telling you what the Fed's going to do, like Harry Dent projecting a massive deflationary bust. Bond traders like Greg Foss telling you what's happening in the credit markets. Of course, everyone's macro addict, George Gammon, Robert Breedlove, on and on and on. If you'd like to find out about all of their presentations, their keynote presentations, there's a link down below. You can check that out. But this video right here is my keynote presentation that I opened up the event with. You can check it out here, talking about this de-evolutionary process and the catalyst for re-evolution. Now, also, I do want to point out that this is a massive trend that's changing the world, and it should be changing your investment thesis as well. If you'd like to find out how my investment thesis has changed, more specifically what I sold and what I'm buying right now, there's also a link down below. You can join me live next week. I'm going to do about an hour live, show you how I've changed my portfolio, how it's rotated. I'll be doing live Q&A, answering all your questions there. So there's a link down below if you'd want to join me there as well. Otherwise, let's go ahead and jump right into my keynote presentation. It's a little bit long, but I know you're going to enjoy it. So let's go. Welcome, everybody, early in the morning. Maybe, for me. Thanks for coming out. All right, so we got a big event. We got a lot of speakers to help you understand what the heck is going on in the world today, hopefully. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty. What's going to happen? What's the Federal Reserve going to do? We're all waiting to hear what a couple guys are going to decide. Our fate is hanging in their balance, in their hands. Are they going to keep the money spigot on, or are they going to suck the liquidity back out? I know a lot of you have fears, uncertainties about that. What should you be doing? Should we be buying more real estate? Should we be moving somewhere else? Should we be buying a farm? All these different things, all these different questions. I know a lot of you had come wanting to have a plan, somewhat of a plan. You wanted to have a little bit of certainty when you left, so you'd know what to do. I've assembled this group of speakers, about 15 different experts in different areas, and they're all like ingredients of like a cake. So there's all these different ingredients. There's no plan that I can give to any one of you because every one of your plans is going to be different. Just like coming to this event, everybody started from a different place. You traveled by a different means. I came from Austin 3 hours down the road. I drove. Some of you guys flew, right? So we're going to different places. We're starting from different places. We're traveling by different means. We have different time frames. So there's no plan that I can give you. And frankly, you don't want to just be spoon-fed, right? You're all adults. You can think for yourself. But here's all the ingredients. And you can take all these individual pieces, match them up with your own personal interests, what I like to call your investor DNA. What are your interests, your desires, your needs, your wants, your time frames, et cetera. And you can build your plan. And you can have the education that you need so as the world continues to change, you know how to pivot. That's the goal. So all the ingredients will be here. You can make your plan. So today I'm gonna zoom out, and I'm gonna give you a high-level view of what I'm seeing in the world today, rather than trying to give you a specific tactic, because there's gonna be a lot of that. You're gonna hear about gold, and you're gonna hear about yield curve control, and you're gonna hear about sovereign debt bubbles, and you're gonna hear about currencies. You're gonna hear about all that. So I thought I'll just zoom out and let me set the stage a little bit. So let's go ahead and get the slides up on the screen. I'm going to talk about de-evolution and then re-evolution, because this is where I see that we are in the world today. I try to bring context to everything because I believe that if you can zoom out with a long enough lens, things start getting more clear. It's kind of like if you're losing your eyesight and you can't see it here, you have to kind of like hold it out like that. And most of us, we have this short lens. Today, the life expectancy, 80-ish years or so. It used to be 37 years, now it's about 80 years, but most of us are probably paying attention for about 50 years. But with only 50 years, you can't see what happens. As humans, we're horrible investors. We suffer from many things, something called recency bias, something called normalcy bias. Whatever has been happening recent is what's going to continue to happen. During my lifetime, this is the way it's always been, so this is the way it'll always be. But that's just not true at all. And again, if you zoom out and you look at history, you'll see that the world changes quite a bit. And so whatever's happening now is not the way that it's going to be. The world will never be the same. We're moving into a new era. Unfortunately, we're de-evolving, but we'll be re-evolving. So I'm going to run through this real quick because you guys have heard me talk about this at length. 3 revolutionary cycles that are converging right now. I've been talking about it for about a year and a half. It's a thesis that I've put together. Somebody I've learned so much from about cycles is Harry Dent, and I got him to come speak. I'm super excited to hear what he has to say later tonight. But 3 revolutionary cycles, I'm going to run through this super quick. You can go look at my old content if you're not caught up. Basically, on about a 250-year time frame, we have the rise and fall of empires. We have the rise and fall of democracy. About every 250 years, there's a revolution. 250 years ago was the American Revolution, the French Revolution. 250 years before that was the Protestant Reformation. What those represent are people pushing back on centralization, pushing back on globalization, and moving towards decentralization. It's cause and effect. Power continues to grow until people can't take it anymore, and then they push back, they revolt, and then they go back to decentralization, and the pendulum swings back and forth. On a 80-year time frame, we have financial revolutions. About every 80 years, the financial system gets reset. You can see a couple of them. We have Bretton Woods. About 80 years ago, the entire world agreed to go on a one world monetary system. About 80 years before that, the Panic of 1873, Panic 1796, and then the South Sea, Mississippi bubble, we have that. About every 80 years, we see this financial system get reset. And then on a 50-year time frame, we have a technological revolution. This is a key piece. I'm going to get to it a little bit later, but about every 50 years, the world changes because of technology, and a technological revolution is different than a technology. A technology is like the iPhone. We took a phone and a computer, we put them together. That's cool. It's not a revolution. A revolution changes the course of humanity, and it drives financial markets. And I'm going to talk about this one just for a second because this is the key piece that I think most analysts are missing out on. Ray Dalio just wrote this amazing book, Changing World Order. He's got his entire hedge fund, probably spent millions of dollars on research, and it's got more charts and more graphs. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. I love the book. You should all read it. But he doesn't talk about technology. And I'll get back to that in a minute. But back to this is, so we had we had 5 industrial revolutions, steam engines and railways, steel and electricity. We had oil, automobiles. All of humanity, people walked and rode horses, and now we had transportation. It changed the course of humanity. 1971, telecom, microprocessor brought us computers, internet, telecommunications, etc. Now, each one of those changed the course of humanity and drove a financial market. What's been driving the financial markets over the last 40, 50 years? Telecom, internet. What was it before that? GM, GE. What was it before that? Carnegie Steel, Standard Oil. And so here we are witnessing another technological revolution. So while things look bad, things are about to change in a big way. If you understand this, it will be, if you take advantage of it, the biggest opportunity of your lifetime. All right, now fast forwarding. So I've been talking about this thesis for about a year and a half. What's interesting is all 3 of these on different time frames, 50-year, 80-year, 250-year, but they're all converging right now. Do I have a laser pointer? Maybe not. But you can see how they're all converging right there. 2023, 2021. Now, just like the seasons, we have spring starts on this day, but it doesn't mean the weather changes exactly on that day. So it's a range. So everything's happening over the next 5, 6 years or so. 2023, 2026 is that range. And that's why the world is so crazy. We're witnessing a 100-year sovereign year debt bubble bursting. We're witnessing monetary regime change. We're witnessing globalization trying to grab and lose its power at the same time. I kind of see the world like this. I've shown this map before. I didn't put this together, by the way. I'm not taking credit for this. I'm not exactly sure who put this together, but this is the way that I kind of see the world. Peak centralization. The world's been taken over by bankers. We have the BIS at the top. Most people don't even know about the BIS. It's the central bank above all the central banks. They were started after World War II to help Germany pay their reparations. We have the BIS at the top. We have the central banks below that. Then we have the policy makers, of course, the World Economic Forum, everybody's favorite Bond villain, Klaus Schwab. Below that, we have the distributors, the United Nations, IMF, World Bank, et cetera. Below that are the enforcers. That's your local government. So let me give you an example of how this worked. About 2 years ago, the entire world locked down at the exact same time. The exact same time. We've never seen the world coordinated like that before. How did that work? Well, we have the bankers, the policymakers, WF, and then we had the distributors, the WHO. So they went to the enforcers and said, hey, we have this policy, and through the bankers, we're going to give you a bunch of money if you do this thing. It's all about the money. So that's peak centralization. We can see that the United Nations has been transformed since we met in Davos. They're talking about a complete overhaul. They call it a quiet revolution. A coup of bankers. It's a quiet revolution. That's their words. The UN once dealt with only governments, but they realize it can't be achieved without partnerships involving governments, international organizations, and the business community. They call this the public-private partnership. Peak centralization. One world government. It's kind of like a conspiracy, I guess, except for they're doing it and they're telling us. They're taking pictures together. That's Klaus Schwab and the head of the UN. Henry Kissinger famously told us, maybe warned us, what the attack vectors would be. Who controls the food supply controls the people, who controls the energy controls the continents, who controls the money controls the world, which is why the BIS is at the top of that. Now, what's interesting about Henry Kissinger is he game planned this out. He warned us of what was coming. And of course, Henry Kissinger and Klaus Schwab, they're all buddies. As a matter of fact, Klaus Schwab studied under Henry Kissinger. You can see him in that picture when Klaus Schwab was just a young man. You can see Henry Kissinger on the WF panel. And of course, famously, you'll own nothing and be happy. So I'm going to talk about those three attack vectors: food, energy, and money. So first, they got to control the food. We've seen millions of birds, 30 million birds have been killed in just the last couple months. Northern Ireland, they want to kill millions of sheep and cattle because their farts are going to ruin the climate, apparently. And the World Economic Forum is telling us that we need to get ready to eat bugs. Control the food, that's the first thing. Then, control the energy, right? So the very first day in office, Biden had to shut down all the oil and gas. Let's control the energy. Let's shut that down. ESG mandates. Very first day in office, put us back in the Paris Accord, which basically put our energy policy underneath the globalist plan. We can see that, control the energy. We saw in the Netherlands, they shut down all their gas. Hans knows that, he's from the Netherlands. They shut down all their natural gas. The UK has massive natural gas reserves, but let's just not get it out of the ground. Let's just buy it all from Russia. That's a way better deal, right? So it's on purpose. In that little intro, which I was a little bit embarrassed to play, but you heard Max Kaiser say, Mark's a savant. I've been calling for this energy crisis for 2 years. Not because I'm a savant, not because I have a crystal ball, just because you could see the policies they're putting into place. They start shutting down energy. What do you think is going to happen? We're going to run into a crisis, and we did. And then finally, control the money. And this is the big piece. This is where we're at right now. Today, the Biden administration decided that they just wanted to seize $9.5 billion of the Afghanistan central bank. You know, the people in Afghanistan that just got abandoned after 20 years we were there, and they had their money in the bank, and then the banks have it in the Central Reserve, and then the Biden administration just took it all, just seized it. Decided they're going to divvy it up how they see fit. Of course, then it escalated with Canada. We saw that happen in Canada. If anybody donated $25 to a protected, legal, peaceful protest, they got their bank account seized, frozen, kicked out. And then the U.S. and allies bar Russian central banks from accessing their money. And so the attack on money. And the final piece will be the central bank digital currency. We'll talk more about that. And then finally, we can see this last grasp. So we saw just recently a federal judge overturn the mask mandate in the airports. Yes, finally, right? That was good. But they don't want to let that go. The DOJ filed a lawsuit immediately back and appealed. No, we got to put it back into place. Like, what? Like, we finally got our freedom back? And like a judge ruled that? And like, The DOJ can't let it go. They're grasping. They got to hang on. But for us, we know that the pendulum swings, and this is where we're at. We go from globalization to deglobalization. We go from centralization to decentralization. The world has gone to globalization as far as business industry, and we've gone to these just-in-time supply chains, and now the world's going to, oh shoot, just in case I better stockpile. The world's changing, so we can see this real quick. I'm going to run through it real quick, but we can see COVID sparks the birth of local farm movement. People are like, shoot, I can see my food's under attack. I'm going to prepare for that. These are these parallel markets that I talk about. In Shanghai, they're locking down their citizens. The people are over it. They're out in the streets marching, protesting. We can see the supply chains. Those are all boats off of the coast of China that can't get unloaded right now. That's what globalization does, or the globalism, I should say. That's what their policies are doing. And then we have the Arab Spring 2.0. Iraqis take to the streets. Arab Spring 2.0 or Arab Spring 1.0 was one of the largest revolutions we saw in the Middle East. Wasn't that long ago. Why? Why did they have that revolution? Food. They didn't have food. What's happening now? Oh yeah, we don't have any food. 30% of the wheat supply in Russia, Ukraine's gone. The U.S., we have one of the worst wheat crops we've had in history. There's no food, no energy, no food. So that's how it's going. Controlling the energy, how that's been going? Well, the price of natural gas is up 1,000%. That's pretty good. People are literally starving to death. We don't have natural gas to make the fertilizer. We don't have the fertilizer to make the food. That's worked out pretty well for us, control the energy. We can see now Biden's begging terrorist nations like Iran, please give us more oil. But we're seeing this is falling apart. So what we can see here, Biden administration resumes. Okay, fine, let's go ahead, let's get more oil and gas. So they're admitting their mistakes, and this is where the little bit of slivers of hope are coming in. This is where the cracks are starting to appear. This is where we can see things are changing. BlackRock, Larry Fink, he says, he admits it. Hey, ESG is dangerous. We probably shouldn't be doing it anymore. They're starting to change their mind. They're starting to pivot. We can see the cracks coming. Of course, controlling the money, inflation, all-time high. Producer price index, that tells us what's about to happen when it costs more for the commodities. It's like a snake eating a rat. First, the commodities go up, and then those commodities go to make the raw goods, that goes up, and then the producer price, that goes up. Finally, it gets to the consumer, and the price goes up. So this tells us what's coming, more inflation. So is this the end of the cycle? And this is the big piece that I want to say. Again, this is the zoomed out perspective on this. The end of the cycle. Could this be the end of all cycles? And I think it could be. What's really happened more than anything, and most people probably haven't caught on to this yet, is what we've really seen more than anything is the death of trust. That's what's happened. Some people think about these like libertarian or anarchist ideas, which I'm kind of for anarchy, I guess, which basically means, we don't have a ruler. I guess I kind of like that. Of course, someone's always going to have to organize. I get that. But that would be just complete chaos. Without trust, how can we have a world like, can I trust the food person not to poison me? Can I trust my mechanic to fix my car correctly? Can I trust the other driver on the car not to jump over into my lane and kill me? Can we trust other people? We have to have trust. Without that, there's nothing. But the problem is that trust just continually gets sacrificed over and over and over. 1913, creation of the Federal Reserve. They started printing these things called paper gold certificates. They were claims, IOUs on gold. The problem is, from 1913 to 1933, they printed way too many of them. And the government owed gold. They owed gold, because gold was still money at the time. So what'd they do? Oh, they'll just seize everybody's gold. Everybody with your gold in the bank, we'll just take it. And by the way, now gold's illegal. You can't own it. Death of trust, right? The Afghanistan Central Bank, I already talked about. Let's just steal all their money too. We'll take that. That's pretty good. Canadian truckers, again, let's just take your money. Let's seize that. Let's kick you out of the banking system. Now, what happened was all of a sudden everyone's like, hey, shoot, we should probably get our money out of the bank. Jordan Peterson went on and made a video and said, hey, these military people told me I should get my money out of the bank. Bank runs happened. They very quickly changed their perspective. They very quickly started to change those rules. But it showed the world that your money is not your money. Your money is their money, and they decide to let you use it. Now, central bank digital currencies are even worse. There's no money at all. There's nothing to go withdraw from the bank. It's basically just a ledger on the government's books. And then finally, the final death blow, in my opinion, to death or to trust was with the Russian FX reserves. Now, Russia had already been de-dollarizing for a long time, adding to their gold reserves. So it wasn't all just dollars. It wasn't dollars that got trust lost. It was the entire payment network. Russia had reserves in lots of different currencies, and all the countries decided to take all of it. It was the payment network that died. But what happens? How does the world move forward when there's no trust? Well, I've been saving my money and it was all in the bank and they took it. I need to pay for things. I guess I'll have to hold my wealth in gold, but I can't have my gold in the UK like Venezuela got their gold seized by the UK, $2 billion worth of gold, so I guess I have to keep my gold in my safe. But if I need to pay for something across the ocean, how do I get my gold there? How do I verify that I have the gold? Well, I guess I could put a camera, like a live stream, showing my gold supply. But China was found a year ago to have fake gold. Shoot, how does that work? How can we globally trade with each other? In a world where we operate over the internet and Zoom, how can we go forward? And this is where the devolution comes into play. This is the devolution. So for 5,000 years, we had gold. Gold was money. It worked really well. Problem was, gold's heavy. It doesn't move very well. So we wanted to speed that up. We needed more velocity. So in 1971, we got off the gold standard. We created a fiat money system, Treasuries, reserves, SWIFT networks. We created a payment system that was built off of debt that we could move money around really quickly. We could expand the payment network. By expanding the payment network, we were able to now start working globally and have more trade. I'll get back to that in a second. But what we're seeing right now, 2022, in my opinion, one of the key pivotal dates. I believe when we're in the future looking backwards, we'll look at this date as one of the pivotal dates. The world's going back to a commodity-based money. So gold is a commodity. We're going back to a commodity money. Turns out we actually need things like oil and gas and food. Turns out we need those things. I've used this analogy many times. If I was on a deserted island with $1 million of cash, $1 million of gold, and $1 million of Bitcoin, but I had no food, no water, no boat, no phone, no nothing to pay for it, it would all be worthless, right? So it's food, energy, those are the things that have value. Those are the commodities, and that's the new form of money because we can't trust this payment network anymore. We're now de-evolving. So if we can't have this global payment network, how do we move forward? Well, we don't. So now we're seeing all the supply chains being rerouted. Instead of getting oil to China in 2 weeks, now it could take 2 months. Problem is we don't have enough boats to be on the water to make that trip for 2 months. Supply chains are starting to break down. They're going to have to be rerouted. What does that mean? Well, that means you're not going to have the products on the shelf that you used to have. That means that prices are going to go up big time. We can see the highest price for every major commodity. We're at that level. Like I said, the Germany Price Producer Index is at an all-time high. We're seeing the nations around the world dumping treasuries. Shoot, I can't hold my money in that anymore. I can't save in that. Let's dump it. Let's dump the treasuries. We're not buying any more of these bonds. We can see that the amount of foreign ownership of bonds has been going down. And on the top right chart, we can see that the government just buys more and more. And on the bottom right chart, we can see that the central banks around the world have been net sellers of treasuries and net buyers of gold. They've seen this going for a while. Trust is something that falls and falls and falls and falls and falls. You have a business partner, you think maybe he's embezzling from you, you're not quite sure, you're starting to lose trust, you're starting to question things, you're starting to kind of plan for it, and then one day you find that piece of evidence, trust is gone. It doesn't come back. They've been preparing for it, they've seen that. We're de-evolving, and now the world's scrambling, trying to figure out what comes next. Israel starts getting off the dollar. Israel's been one of our best allies. They don't want to use the dollar anymore. People are now paying Russia in their own currency, rubles. Russia says they're considering selling oil in Bitcoin. Saudi Arabia, which helps us control the petrodollar, is considering accepting other currencies as well. Everybody's over it. But there's not like this orderly system. In 1944, Bretton Woods Agreement, the whole world got together and agreed what would come next, but now it's just a mad scramble. We're de-evolving. And how can we have this, like I said, this global trade in a world where there's no trust? It's kind of like this movie with like a drug deal. It's like, give me the drugs. No, give me the money. No, you first, right? How does that work? And then we have a picture of China with their fake gold. Well, that's the de-evolution. So we've had 50 years of globalization. We've taken $50,000 jobs here and offshored them for $8,000. We've taken a $100 part, and now we have it made in Asia for $8. So our costs have gotten cheaper. The world's expanded because of that. We've been able to print hundreds of trillions of dollars. Inflationary, it's been offset by the deflation. There's been a lot of evolution. We've brought more people on to help with ingenuity, new product development, progress, etc. It's been great. But now we're de-evolving. But we have this technology piece, and this is what I wanted to come back to, because, like I said, even in Ray Dalio's book, which is amazing, and he's smarter than I'll ever be, he's probably forgot more than I'll ever know, the research is unbelievable, but it just seemed to miss this one piece, because it's technology that changes the world. And here we are right now witnessing another technological revolution. And it's technology that makes all the change in the world. If you go back through thousands of years of history, you're going to see it's always technology that makes the change. An example would be like the stirrup. Imagine that, a piece of technology. Technology was simple back in the day. It started very small. But the stirrup allowed a knight to get on a horse full of armor and get up on their horse with their javelin or their spear and handle easily 100 serfs. That piece of technology changed the power balance of the world and allowed these kings and this feudal system to grow rapidly. But then in the 1500s, we had something called the gunpowder revolution. So now one serf with a gun could take out 100 knights. It's that technology that changed the power balance of the world, which then changed the entire way the world was organized. Because whoever has the power gets to choose how they organize the world. And so when we shift that power balance, the world changes. Right now, the power of the world is in this centralized form, in this ability to print money. But if that power of balance shifts, how does the world change based off of that? We've had three types of money. Three types of money. We've had hard money, that's been gold. Gold's been money for 5,000 years. It needed to evolve because we started to have this global trade and it was too slow. The velocity is too slow on that hard money. So let's just put it into the banks and we'll use that debt, that the paper claims, IOUs. We can now transfer them very quickly. They're just ledgers, right? But what happened is those IOUs, those claims on money, then just turned into actually just fiat money. It's not even a claim. You can't go redeem any of those dollars for gold. So that's as far as this technological evolution has gotten us. And we've just been stuck in this loop ever since, trusting third parties not to screw us over. And every single time, again and again, they do. Human nature. Human nature. Now, a lot of people don't understand even what money is. And so without this kind of first principles look, you don't really understand even simple things like what's happening with the interest rates on my yield, on my crypto, or what's going to happen with oil in the future, right? And so these simple basic concepts, what is money? We have to kind of understand that. So money is obviously a medium of exchange. It's an emergent technology. So we used to trade barter, a chicken for a goat, but if you don't want my goat, then we don't have a deal. So I might say, well, shoot, okay, you don't want my goat, would you take this instead? Okay, yeah, I'll take that. So then that's a medium of exchange. And eventually enough things become common medium of exchange. And then eventually one emerges to be the best. But it has to have, and gold was that. It took the medium of exchange, best medium of exchange, 5,000 years. But it had to have these critical attributes: scarcity, divisibility, portability, durability, recognizability. Bananas don't make a very good medium of exchange because they're not durable. They're going to last, what, like 7 days? Right? You can't store your wealth in bananas. It has to be scarce. We can't use like sand. There's too much sand, right? It has to be scarce. Cows don't work real well. They're not divisible. Right? It has to be recognizable. Everybody has to see it, know what it is. But the portability is the key piece. So gold emerged as the best medium of exchange because it met all of those qualities. It was scarce, it was divisible, it was portable, it was very durable. But it's not portable, which is why we got stuck in this loop. It's not portable. Well, let's put it in the banks. Let's speed it up by putting debt on top of it, and let's trust these people with our money. Trust, 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 trust. Trust is dead. Now, it's important through this evolutionary process, if we want to continue to evolve, if we want to continue to have progress, if we want to continue to invent new things, have more wealth, we have to cooperate. No matter how smart you are, collectively you're smarter. You see the world one way, other people see it another way. You see one problem and maybe you see a solution to it. Someone else sees that same problem but a different solution. Maybe they see other problems with different solutions. And so we need this global cooperation. And really the world turned a corner in the 1600s at the advent of the Dutch East India Company. That's where really trade really started taking off. So now, instead of me having to make my own food, make my own clothes, build my own house, and do all that, now we can trade with other parts of the world. We can have different products, different goods. We have a different set of building blocks to create new things. If I have a deck of cards, I could build like a house of cards. But if I have a set of Legos, I can build something totally different. And so by being able to trade with different parts of the world, get different materials, we have different building blocks, we can build all different types of things. We're starting to share more information. Things start changing very rapidly. The whole world started changing at that point. We can see the Dutch East India Company was worth about the same as these 20 modern companies that we have today. And we can see on a chart that we got the entire world out of poverty. Look at that dropping from the 1800s, the advent of machines, the Industrial Revolution, getting people off of the farms and into cities, into factories, using machines. Let's make things. Let's work together. Let's cooperate. It's great. Global cooperation is great. Globalism, not so much. Globalism is what's been the result of that. Those technologies, the global trading, the machines, that led to centralization. Everybody left the farms and they moved into the cities. And you couldn't just be in a city, you had to move to America. And then you couldn't just be in America, you had to be in New York or Chicago or San Francisco. All this centralization. It was great, but that technology changed the way the world organized. It centralized us, and it made it very easy for the powers to be to squeeze us. What are you going to do? Move your factory? Good luck, right? It's kind of like the mob extracting money from the bakery. What are you going to do? Move your bakery? So that centralization made it very easy. The cost of the return on violence was very high. They could squeeze you very easily. But even through all that, it worked out really, really well for the world. We brought the entire world out of poverty. Well, not the entire world, but a lot of the world out of poverty. And we can see on the third chart is the amount of people working on farms has dramatically shifted. One of the big stories out of China, how they've been able to rise from the ashes, so to speak, over the last 40 years, is they brought all those people from the rice paddies on the farms and they moved them into cities. A lot of it artificially, that's another story, but still moving people out of extreme poverty into cities. And then they're coming up with new ideas. They're creating new things. And China has excelled. Now they're making all the high-tech products because they've moved those people out of the farms and they brought them into this global cooperation, which is great. My point is, we need that. We need it. We just don't want the globalism that comes with it. We still want to be free to be able to be sovereign, to put our lives in the direction that we want, in the way that we see fit, in the way that we think is best for us. So we want global cooperation. We just don't want one person in the top of the world to tell us what to do. And what's enabled this globalization to excel was having this global payment network. We've talked about that. So the United States dollar became the reserve currency of the world. We built the SWIFT system. The United States was the trusted party. It was a nation built on God. It had values. It had principles. It had a rule of law. It attracts lots of investment capital because there's a rule of law. People feel safe putting their money here because they don't think it's going to be stolen from them. And we've built this payment network out, and money moves really fast, and it's enabled all this to happen. A good majority of my staff is all remote, and we send money around the world as we work around the world using Zoom and internet, etc. The global payments, that network's been great. The problem is, their network is their network, which means if we use their network, then we have to abide by their rules, which means it's their rules, which means it's their power. We're 100% beholden to what they want to do. Now, the United States has been a nation based off of values. It's been a nation that had trust. It's been a nation that had, past tense, had a rule of law. Had. I'm not here to sympathize with Putin. I'm not trying to tell you he's a good guy. But we just went and seized Russian oligarchs' yachts. Did they have anything to do with the war? Was there any kind of due process or court? We just took their assets with no due process? That's not a rule of law. That's a thing that ruins trust. That makes people very afraid to have any types of assets. That's why I said had. We took their bank accounts. In China, it's even worse. We can see they have this social credit score system. This is some old data. I couldn't find any new data because China doesn't put out a lot of good data they don't want you to hear. But the scorecard, we can see almost 18 million people were blocked from buying airline tickets in 2018. That was like a while ago, like 4 years ago. Imagine how many more people are being blocked just from buying an airline ticket today. 5 million people were blocked from buying a train ticket because their social credit score wasn't good enough. So when we're in their system, we're beholden to them. It's their power. It's what enables them to have all this power, printing unlimited amounts of money to build the perfect prison for you. Of course, like I said, the central bank digital currencies, those are what's coming next. That's really what completes this whole thing. You don't have money you can go get out of the bank. Instead, you just have credits on a ledger. And they continue to use this money to build this surveillance program. I just read this article the other day, the fourth branch of government. Of course, in the United States, we have 3 branches, supposedly. Now they're calling it the fourth branch of government, which is the intelligence community. All these new agencies, of course, the new one, the Ministry of Truth, that's coming online. Everybody's favorite. By the way, countries out of history that have actually put something like that into place, it hasn't gone very well for them. Just a little historical fact. But that's where we're at, their network, their power. And like I said, if we go back to there's always been 3 types of money, that's where we've been stuck in this loop, which continues to repeat the cycle. We start with hard money, we make paper claims, we go to fiat, they print too much of it because of human nature, it fails, we start back over with hard money, we get the debt for velocity, we print too much of it, it fails, we start over every 80 years. I showed you that chart earlier. It's just a cycle that repeats. But what if there was a new technology, a technological revolution, something that could change the course of humanity, something that could change the way that we work, the way that we coordinate, the way that we communicate? What if it could change this dynamic that causes us to be stuck in this doom loop all the time? And what happens when trust is lost? Are we going to be stuck de-evolving? Do we have to de-evolve for another 80 years before maybe we can build a little bit of trust back up and let's try this trusted payment network again? Shoot, let's just try it again. I mean, they've seized our gold, they've printed too much money, they seized their bank accounts, but let's give it another try. How does the world move forward when trust is lost? Well, we would need something that would be trustless. Would make sense. Something that would be borderless, because we still want global cooperation. We will actually want to continue to grow globalization. We want to continue to bring the rest of the world out of poverty. We want to get 2 billion more adults online to start learning and thinking about new ideas, new inventions, new cures for diseases. We need those people. We can have massive progress. We can have massive peace. We need to bring those people on. It needs to be borderless. It needs to be permissionless, though. Over half the adults in the world today have no access to the financial system. It's pretty heavy. I think the smartphone, the iPhone, the Android phone, whatever, the smartphone is the great equalizer, because with that, I can learn anything, I can meet anyone, I can do anything. A kid with an Instagram account could make $100,000 a year, easy, anywhere in the world. Unless they don't have permission to join the financial network. Literally half the adults in the world don't have permission. They're not allowed. We need something that's immutable, that people can't just go change whenever they want. How many dollars did the Federal Reserve, how much did the money supply increase over the last 24 months? Anybody know? 40%. They just decided to do that. They didn't ask my opinion on that. Of course, when the money supply increased by 40%, it's no surprise that real estate's gone up by about 40%. Used cars are up about 40%. Last week, there was a video of the 3 money managers of the world, Jay Powell from the US Fed, We had Kristalina Georgina from the IMF. We had Christine Lagarde from the ECB on a stage laughing. Kristalina Georgina from the IMF laughing. She said, well, I guess we knew if we printed all that money that the prices of things would go up. But I guess we didn't think about the unintended consequences of what would happen. Ha ha ha. You didn't think about the unintended consequences? I could have told you what was going to happen. Most of you could have told us what would happen. She went on to say, I guess we're like a bunch of 8-year-olds playing soccer. We crowd around the ball, but we don't think about covering the rest of the field. She said they're like 8-year-olds and didn't think about the unintended consequences, and they were all three laughing. While 100 million people will starve to death this year because of what they've done. That ain't right. We need something that's immutable, something that can't be changed. Boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust. Everyone wants to know what's up with these cycles. Are we going to have another boom? Or are we going to have another bust? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. When the Federal Reserve creates a lot more money, things boom. And when they take the money back out, things bust. It's not rocket science. You're going to hear a lot of people talk over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, that are going to show you a lot more in-depth, detailed information. A lot of it may be a little bit over your head, academic, so just real simple. When they create more money, things boom. When they take it out, things bust. If you look at a chart, so the Federal Reserve has two mandates. One, stable prices. I don't know if price is going up, house is going up by 40% in a year, stable. The second one is full employment. And actually, unemployment's super low right now because 60% of the workforce isn't participating. So that's good. Yeah, that's one way to get their numbers, I guess. But if you look at a chart, which I don't have it, I should, at 1913, you can look back through a couple hundred years and you can see the boom-bust cycle. It's natural. It's natural. Fads come in and out. Things change, things boom and bust. What was good before dies, there's a new thing happens. But the boom bust cycles all of a sudden at 1913 just take off and they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So when they lower interest rates, people borrow more, it puts more money into existence. Instead of buying one house I've saved up for a long time, I just go buy 10 houses. And now there's 10 contractors working, and those 10 contractors go buy 3 new trucks. And then those companies make 30 new trucks, and then they have money, and you see how that expands. It also works in advance. So we need something that's immutable, something that just can't be changed at a whim, because everybody this week was hanging on the FMOC meeting, the Federal Reserve. What are they going to do? Will they raise rates? Will they lower rates? Everybody's waiting. Are they going to crash the markets? Will they keep them going? The whole world is waiting on what one guy decides to do with the money, and your future, your fate, hangs in the balance. Everyone was expecting it to be way worse. It wasn't as bad as people expected, and the markets rallied. Yay! He didn't kill us today. Maybe he'll kill us later. It's hard to see a new system when you're stuck in the system. Jeff Booth, who's going to talk later, he talks about this. So it's kind of hard to see this, but when you actually just stop for a second and kind of peel it back and look at it, the insanity of what we have, and then we want something that's censorship resistant, that nobody could steal from us. And so that leads to the re-evolution. The revolution that we're in on a 250-year time frame, like a pendulum swinging towards globalization and deglobalization. This revolution that we're in today, history tells us that we end globalization, centralization, move back to decentralization. We're going to talk about that in a little bit on another panel. But this revolution will end globalism, not globalization. Globalization is a good thing. It will enable more globalization. We'll be able to move money faster without gatekeepers in the middle, without them rent-seeking, taking the percentages of all of that. Moving money to El Salvador, the person receiving it might receive 20 to 30% less money than what I sent them. How much does that slow things down when 20 to 30% of the money just got sucked out by bureaucrats doing nothing? How much does that drag on progress? So when we can move money faster, we can move it permissionless, we can move it censorship resistant, We can have more globalization, more global trade, more progress. That's the re-evolution. What it brings is a brand new system that we can work, we can communicate, and we can trade. And that's the world that I see. Timelines. What you're going to hear over the next day and two is a lot of people talking about inflation or deflation, or the housing market's going to boom, or the housing market's going to bust, or gold's going to go up, or gold's going to go down. The one thing that you have to think about is time frame. So always think about that question. When someone says, are we going to have inflation? Are we going to have deflation? Will the markets crash? Over what time frame? So that's one thing that you want to think about. So I see this happening per my research and my thesis. 2025 is about the epicenter. 2023, 2026 is kind of this range where I think we're peaking out. I think they'll continue to squeeze even harder, try to hang on even harder. That means things might continue to get a little bit worse for the next couple of years, but then things get better, which gives me hope because I got kids. Hopefully I'll have grandkids one day, and I do believe there's massive hope and prosperity on the other side, but not just in some far-off land, in my lifetime, in just a couple years from now. So the key is, how do we make it from here to there? The next couple years, and the key is by jumping on the trends and just riding them. So obviously I'm talking about Bitcoin if you guys are slow and just catching on. But it's not just about Bitcoin, right? The entire world is changing, like I said, moving away from a fake fiat monetary system and moving into a real hard asset commodity system. So energy is great. Energy is a great way to play. I think there's a potential that we might see gold outpace gold in a short-term window, maybe, as the whole world is trying to rush to gold. Gold, commodities, energy. I think uranium is a massive play. I think the world is short on energy. There's been a massive underinvestment into energy. We still have this push for green energy, which we're starting to see as uranium, or I should say nuclear. So those are some big trends that I think are going to be good as this thesis plays out, as this world changes. Protect your money. There's massive hope on the other side. And hopefully that just gives you a high-level picture that everybody else coming after me are going to start to fill in the blanks. And that's what I got. So, thanks. All right, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. I know it was long, but hopefully you enjoyed it. It was my presentation, my keynote presentation from Market Disruptors Live. If you'd like to see all the other presentations that were there, there's a link down below. You can check out who they were. Check that out down below. And like I said at the intro, next week I'm going live to show you how I'm changing my investment thesis, and you should be changing your investment thesis too. What I'm selling, what I'm buying. I'm going to open up to live Q&A. There's a link down below to check that out as well. That's what I got for you today. All right, to your success. I'm out.